What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And I have to say, it's been a minute since I recorded one of these. I batch recorded for about a month, got sick twice. We've had a merger. I went to podcast movement, lots of good stuff happening, lots of crazy stuff happening. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, I actually miss interviewing people. And then Kyle, you all know Kyle. Kyle reaches out to me and he says, hey, I've got this guy. You've got to meet this guy and need to interview him now. And as most of you know, I have a year-long wait list to come on this show. I was like, okay, we've got to have this guy on. His name's HB Pasley. I hadn't heard of this guy, right? But we just had a fantastic conversation. We've been talking for way longer than we probably should have. But we are now hopping into the interview here. So HB, guys, he is the founder of Ideal Client Experience. And this guy has already wowed me in 30 minutes. So I'm really excited to have him here to share with you his wisdom, with his guidance, his tactics, his story, everything that you'll need to be able to provide a client experience that's going to be a game changer. So HB, big long-winded intro, but I'm glad to have you here.
That was a really good introduction, by the way. I'm glad to be part of your soft landing as you're re-entering time with humans.
Exactly.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I had a long career in music, and we never liked on the marquee for it to say anything grand, because then it's easy to disappoint. It's better to say average band playing tonight at 7. So then if you outpace expectations, then you really win. You don't want best band ever. Maybe Free Beer and Barbecue would be your alternate band name. But
yeah, exactly.
thanks for the build-up, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. It's funny. I had my team, because I've been like dead for a week with COVID, and my team have been sending me all these Ace Ventura gifs, which I thought are so funny, guys. If you haven't ever seen that show, I'm gonna blatantly plug them. It's hilarious, right? And my team. So I was super. Yeah. If you have COVID, I'm just gonna give a lot of TMI here. But when you get COVID, you get so dang sweaty. And I don't know if you've seen the rhino scene in Ace Ventura where he's like being birthed from a rhino. Have you seen that scene?
Yes.
Hilarious. Hilarious. My team said that to me, and I was like, oh gosh, that just made my life. So laughter does improve.
Yeah, every time I meet a UPS guy that's somewhere up the food chain, I always ask them if they've seen it, just because of the way he mishandles packages in the opening scene of that film.
Yeah. Oh man, good times. So HB, let's get into some meat here, because they're probably going, okay, Josh, get to the point. Yep. The client experience, I never thought it was that important until my clients started leaving. I think we've all had that moment where we say, man, I just lost the client. Why? Right? There's some blatantly obvious clients where you have those clients where it's just a mismatch, right? And they're gone. But there's nothing worse than having a client leave and you're like, wait, what? What happened? Can you kind of talk to that specific scenario? Because I feel like most of our people are such good people. That's probably more the case. It's naivete, right?
Oh my gosh. It's just like that dating experience when you get the it's not you, it's me talk.
Mm-hmm.
This is even worse, because when a client has a hiccup in their experience with you, especially if you've had a long relationship with them, they don't want to hurt your feelings. There's something about you that they like. So what do? It's kind of like churchgoers. When they get ready to leave the church, first they move to the balcony and then they disappear quietly.
Yep.
So client experience, the way I view it now, it may not be the first thing in mind for an entrepreneur. When you're first starting out, energy, grit, enthusiasm, wild, disregard for logic. Occasionally, this really works to your advantage. But if you've been in a business leadership space with human beings, say in the 5 to 10 year window, you probably are getting to a place where you start to feel that way. Josh, you've had some experiences like, wait a minute, my favorite client, the Johnsons, just disappeared. What happened? And you may or may not get the information. It almost always comes down to something they expected you did not provide. And even though you were being a genius, something that they felt that they needed, you didn't feel it. There was not enough empathy and the team didn't know how to touch it. So that's part of the why I started developing what I call a playbook for client experience, because I felt like people needed to be able to divide this thing up and conquer it and make it practical, instead of just some empathetic magic that only client experience magicians can pull off.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny, and I'm probably just going to like state your point here, but most people look at client experience like, oh, that's something I can outsource to India, right? But what you're talking about is really an all-encompassing experience from first interaction with a salesperson, or even from to your website or wherever they come into your world, to how they're handled within like the fulfillment process and everything. That's what you're getting at, right? Is it the client experience from every touch point?
Well, it is now. So if you go to the internet machine and search customer experience, that'll be the language that you would find the most return on.
Right.
Like I'm looking at the latest cover of the Harvard Business Review is about knowing your client's questions before they do.
Yeah.
Now, when they're speaking about that, and when a lot of these articles you read are generated by an internet commerce environment where the client experience is literally 2 seconds long.
Right.
And some of it is even dark side stuff, like how can we use your data without you knowing it to predict your behavior? Okay, that's the naughty side.
Yeah.
That's not what you and I are talking about.
Yeah, so we're not going political on this.
No,
Carry on.
to be specific. Yeah, to be specific. I only coach business owners who are building long-term relationships with clients. They must build trust in order to deliver their value. And they know that client experience for them is a multi-year arc. It's not a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's where the technology comes in on applying this trade. It's kind of like saying, do you want to build great relationships, Josh?
I mean, of course. Yeah.
Of course you do. And then we'd say, well, tell me about your relationships. Which ones are growing? Which ones have you had the worst time with? Who do you really want to build a relationship with, Josh? Who are you trying to invest more time with? That's when this playbook becomes helpful, because you can't create a client experience playbook for everybody. In your business, you really need to only worry about creating it for your ideal client.
Yeah.
The people that set you on fire and they think you're amazing. Those folks need something very special catered for them, or you're not going to build advocacy among the clients that you really want advocating for you.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because that word advocacy, my first marketing class in my undergraduate program, that was the first thing they talked about, is the highest form of marketing is advocacy, right? And that stuck with me to this day, like 10 years later, right? And what I found is that that's phrase, advocacy, is so ambiguous, I think would probably be the best word to use. That is that most people don't actually know what advocacy means. They think it's just a referral, like a hard referral. I don't think that's the case, but I'm going to kind of step back here, and I want to wrap something in here with a very specific scenario, because I know this has happened for a lot of my people listening to this show. I just had a client drop us just this last week out of nowhere, absolutely out of nowhere. And I realized something that happened there, because my team was connecting with him and he was kind of giving us a long list of reasons. I realized my personality is I'm the visionary leader, right? If you've ever done the DISC assessment, that's mine. So I go out and I pitch vision, I talk really high, and I have a hard time dumbing it down and simplifying. And for him, he's like, I just need to make the first little dollar, Josh. I don't need, how I'm going to be a billionaire down the road, right? And so I found that even though for my ideal clients being somebody who's more affluent, they're probably a little more concerned about the now. So I'm kind of curious, how do you think somebody can work with being a visionary, but getting on their same level as their clients? Because most entrepreneurs are that visionary leader, and they tend to almost overdo it sometimes for the client. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny. I want to answer your question, and I'm distracted by the opposite client that just came to my mind.
Okay, tell them both. Let's do both.
Well, it's like, so I hear what you're saying. If we are very high altitude thinkers and leaders, we gravitate to people who like to think that way. But when people do surveys of businesses and leaders who have troubles, it's not getting a big idea that they're ever lacking. It's the word execution.
Right.
Every time it's like, I got the idea, now show me how to do it. I want this thing made more practical for me.
Yeah.
We'll turn this around a little bit. One of my clients last year was a commercial developer. Okay. But her business wasn't built just on securing investors and making a building. This woman had a mission. She wanted to build very family friendly, sort of attainable housing in a downtown area. It had such a family vibe. It had such a community building vibe to it. She came to me because she had this vision. Her problem was she had not put it into her messaging, and it was not in a playbook to deliver that to investors. So what was she doing when she did investor meetings? Same thing everybody else does. You throw a big picture up on the back wall with your rate of return, then the next opportunity, a fancy looking graph, maybe a spreadsheet that puts everybody to sleep, and then you hope that they will give according to the money opportunity. And I said, well, look, tell me about your last 4 or 5 clients. Why did they give? So she had to go through it. And she realized after going through the last 5, they gave because they were attracted to the mission. So we said, aha, what if we just put in the playbook? No, we're not changing your whole business. Let's just put in the playbook, mission first, engineering second.
Right.
And the way she made it practical, so it wasn't an idea, is I said, well, tell me how you have been relaying the mission to your present investors, not even new ones, just the ones that have already been with you. And they had a few ideas. And then after we brainstormed, she said, I think what we'll do is we'll do a cocktail party, a mixer, but instead of presenting numbers, which we've done in the past, what if we just told stories on the why we do this? Josh, she said when they got through this little routine, I loved coaching that through a little bit. They did this mixer. It was super exciting. She came back and said, HB, we're done. And I said, what do you mean we're done? She goes, we raised the $7 million for the next build right after this. We were done after this meeting. And I said, hi. And she goes, furthermore, it was the easiest thing we've ever done. So to me, that's like somebody that had a big idea that just hadn't put it into practice yet, because it wasn't even that complicated, right? You and I were chatting before our time that business owners don't need an 87-point play. No. It's really like hike, run, throw, just keep it simple, baby.
Yeah.
For me, when I look at client experience, it's like that. We need to determine who we're really trying to build our relationships with, map that experience. I've cut it into 8 steps. So the book that I have coming out is going to cut this thing into just 8 steps that you think about with your clients along their journey with you from start to years from now.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is find the one that you're weakest at, ignore everything else, and create a 30-day attack so that you and your team just say, how can we improve this weak spot in the next 30 days? Set an incentive, go to town.
I love that strategy. And the reason why is because I watch, being somebody who produces content, we work with a lot of content producers as well. Mm-hmm. People want you, so content creators want you to consume and consume and consume and consume. The problem is we watch the consumer getting overserved. And so they're underserved because they get so much information, they don't know where to attack, like you said. But I like to go deep. I'm the kind of guy, I get one book and I read it 5 times until I feel like I've mastered it, right? Versus wide reading. Does that make sense? Yep. And I think that your strategy there is saying, hey, here's 8 possibilities. Pick the one that you honestly feel like you suck at.
Yep.
And focus on that one. That's, I love it. So when it comes to your book, and you've mentioned the term playbook a few times, and I want to throw this out there.
Yep.
You keep mentioning playbook. Why a playbook, and how is that used within a company? Because when I hear even the term book thrown around, period, I think lots of time, and Josh is not going to take lots of time.
Thanks for pushing on that term a little bit. Okay, I started with, you'll find this fun, since I've always loved language and messaging. My whole career has been about how can I deliver a more encouraging message to people who need it. I started with the word framework, because I liked a client experience framework. What's a blue line in which we could sort of design the basics, and then your team, because I work with businesses that are of different shapes and sizes and purposes. How do we get your team's stuff into this framework? I still like that word, but I was talking to a friend of mine who's head of a foundation for a big nonprofit, and he was looking at the client experience stuff in order to develop high value donors. Again, right. Long-term relationships, really important to build messaging and mission in the center. And he said, HB, I don't like the term framework. It sounds so engineering. Okay, so he's whining from his angle. And he goes, why don't you call it a playbook? I like playbook because it means, I can just come back and look at my arm and choose which of the 4 plays I need to do this week.
Right.
And that got in my head just like a quarter book. So I think X's and O's.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, and we don't want to diminish our audience. We never do that. That's not right. But I really just want to put plays that would fit for Little League. Like, let's keep it simple. Just 3 or 4 or 5 plays that we need to focus on as business owners, that if your business depends on successfully creating trustworthy long-term relationships, I mean, how complicated can you make it?
Yeah.
Let's just focus on the essentials that we need to have between us. And what we have to do is get our whole team on board. That's where the word playbook, I think, comes in best, because then everybody has to go, okay, I'm over here, I'm catching the ball, you're throwing the ball, I'm going to do this thing. This is where I fit into the X's and O's scheme. Because if everybody on your team doesn't feel, including the janitor and the CEO, feel that they have to make a critical contribution to client experience, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Love that.
And it's important to know that if you don't get everybody on board, you're doing it wrong. And that's part of what this work is about. I showed this to you before. This is sort of a mock. They're still in press right now, but it's called "Never Drop the Ball Again." Haha, sports metaphor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, he just keeps coming back to sports.
And I'm not even that athletic. I'm kind of a big dork. But
I was going to ask you that. I was like, are you into football? I'm not even that big. I'm Googling right now what you call that thing that goes on the sheet that they put on there. I'm like, is it a cheat sheet? I can't remember what they call it.
Yeah, that thing. It's a little book on how the ideal client experience will save your business. And I mean that seriously, because I think a lot of businesses are going to plateau, lose energy, and poop out simply because they can't get their whole team to realize how important and mission critical client experience is. Look, the data started in 2012, the stuff that I've been reading. In 2020, 77% of consumers in the US preferred customer experience over price and product. You see, most businesses go out and try to compete on price, but then they're swallowed up by the monsters who have been driving price down with mass.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then they say, well, it's going to be quantitative for us, so we're going to compete on quality. Well, the problem with that is there's still always somebody out there who's doing it better than you, and I don't care how good you are.
Yep.
And you can enter that argument if you want to, but apparently information's so fast. The speed of information about product and price is so fast that the modern consumer, the modern human, craves something more. What is it? It's a human touch that makes them feel like there's something valuable being exchanged. Trustworthy people are engaging. Maybe it's a touch of dignity and respect. Maybe it's not listening to a robot on a frickin' phone call when you call in for customer service.
Right.
People want some kind of human interaction, and you don't have to transform your company from zero to 100. My question is, would a little improvement in the soft skills of making your people feel like you care? This is a feeling question. Would that improve traction and customer loyalty over time? Well, if it is, it's 3 times easier to sell things to your present client base than it is to sell them to somebody you've not met before. And that's across industries. So you tell me if it attracts you because of efficiency, great, let's get efficient. Let's start working on how your people feel about the process from start to finish.
Yeah. Geez, that's awesome. It's funny. I Googled it. I couldn't find the term, by the way. So for those of you who know what the little play card the quarterback has on their arm, please let me know. It's going to bug me for days. I think I really feel like the takeaway a lot of people are going to get from this is that playbook concept, because what you've talked about is strategic action, and I think about it where I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, we got to have one of these for our sales team in particular, of like, hey, if this happens, these are the plays you run, right? If this happens, these are the plays. There's only like 3 plays, 5 plays, right? And I think that's brilliant. I've never thought of it that way. But people are laughing.
I think you're Kyle Sullivan's already a genius at this. He's so natural. At the very beginning, Kyle wanted to talk about me and what I was interested in when we first got introduced. He wanted to know my story and what problem I was trying to solve. That's step 1 in the 8-step of the client experience playbook. Right. People want to know, they have a pre-existing problem and they just want to know who could touch it, who could help me with this thing.
Yep.
If your very first engagement with a client isn't addressing their primary concern, the fear and the trouble they have around their problem, if you start with your list of cool stuff you do, you just lost it.
Yep, completely.
Kyle's already an intuitive genius, so he's got that going. There are 7 more steps because the final step is advocacy. The goal is to train clients to do what they want to do. And I said train, not like they're puppies, but clients who want to advocate for you, who simply don't know how, will not. Right. Because they get lost in a moment of uncertainty. I wonder how I could tell more people about what Josh has done for me. I wonder if Josh wants me to email them or put them on a phone call, and then the doorbell rings and they forget about this conversation.
Yep.
So there has to be an easy, quick click, and there's got to be some easy language to describe. Your client should be able to describe your service, in other words, in the words that you prefer it described.
Yeah.
So you're attracting the right problem solving, engage. Did I talk too much? I feel like I really just ran off the edge of that.
No, are you kidding? That was great. I'm like, I want to write notes over here. I'll just go back and listen to it, and I'll make Kyle listen to it.
In my work, I asked all the questions and you do all the talking. This whole podcast interview thing's kind of freaking me out.
It's funny, after you get off a conversation, sometimes you're like, wow, I'm a loudmouth. I feel that way all the time. I'm like, I have got to slow my roll sometimes. It's so intriguing though to be on the other side of the mic from somebody like you, because for me, in order to ask you a good question, I have to be thinking about the context, right? I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm saying, okay, contextually, how does this fit for me and for the people listening to the show? And I look at that and I go, if you're listening to this show, I would hope you're doing that same thing for yourself, of saying, if I were to ask HB a question, how would I put this into the context of my own business, right? And that question that you're wanting to ask, HB, I want to give us one solid place people can go ask you that question.
Hey, thank you. That's very generous, by the way.
No problem.
The easiest thing to do, I think, these days is just refer to a website where it's very easy to click a button and maybe leave a comment or make a request for connection. Idealclientexperience.com. We've been using that phrase a bunch during the interview, so I think that's pretty common language now. So idealclientexperience.com. There's two things you can do there. You can take a little 15-second survey that I put up just to see if you and I are going to be compatible on a professional level, because I can't advise everyone. I advise people that sell strategy and not stuff. But while you're there as well, there's a way to just click a button and book a quick 30-minute freebie with me, because I like making relationships. And I'm not turning anybody away, and I don't do hourly. So you just click that button, set an appointment, and we will yuck it up for 30, and I'll listen to what your processes and problems are. If I don't have a solution, I probably know somebody I could recommend you to. And if I get to the bottom of the barrel, I'll recommend you reach out to Josh Tapp.
Hey, there you go. I love it. Reach out to me and wait for 3 weeks while I respond via email, right?
That's so unfair. So unfair.
You said something in there, HB, that I want to throw out. I think it was something you don't even realize is like probably one of your biggest strengths. You said you do sell to people with strategy who sell strategy, or you sell to people who produce products. Which one do you do? I didn't hear that part.
I serve people that I call wisdom brokers. They're literally selling strategy and wisdom rather than stuff. And you know who you are if you're out there, because some of your friends sell widgets, but you are the widget.
Yep.
And if you are the widget, you are my client.
Okay. I just have to nail that, because for those of you who are listening to this and you're saying, gosh, who is my ideal client? He just said who his was. He didn't have to give you a 15-second synopsis or 15-minute synopsis of who they want to serve or how they have 14 different client profiles. He says, if you sell strategy, I can help you. Yep. If you can get that refined with your messaging and who you're marketing to, guys, I promise you, you're going to come out of this being way more successful. And HB, just to wrap up this interview, I want to ask you one question. Could you give us one solid tactic that they could use with the ideal client experience on the sales side? So on generating sales, what's one ideal client play, like an experience play, that you would recommend to them?
Yeah, on the sales side, this is interesting. The first thing that I always encourage owners to do, if this is a new conversation, get your lead sales or people-facing folks around the table. Pull up a list of the last 10 clients that you enjoyed working with, whether it took a month or a year. Just get them on the board so that people are actually looking at those names. And do a quick rundown together as a team. What do these people think? What are they worried about? Where do they live? I don't care if you get to their favorite football team. I mean, you just start brainstorming. Use sticky notes. I love those things. People just write down words that, are they old, happy, sad, married, owners? Put that stuff into a pile, slap them up on the wall, and get yourself down to about 2 or 3 groups. As soon as you get down to about 2 or 3 groupings, what you've done is the first step in identifying your ideal client. So if what I did just then seemed miraculous and you wish you could stop talking about 5 different client profiles when people ask you who you serve, do this. stick it on the wall, and then draw one of those silhouettes around it like they have on Facebook, the profile before you put your picture up, right? The avatar. That's a cool word that everybody uses these days.
Yeah.
The silhouette is going to be identified by these three key factors: psychographic, demographic, empathy issues. Once you identify them, all you have to do is, from that point, is go, okay, who right now do we have on our list that we need to call, talk to, follow up with that fits into this profile? And focus the team and go, okay, you got 30 days. We want everybody that fits this profile in here for a meeting in the next 30 days, or somebody's going to get cut. Okay, that last part was not true. There's no shaming in this meeting whatsoever. But you can incentivize that. So
yeah, that's great.
I hope that's practical, because I think the more focused salespeople get, the better, because you got to get out and earn a bunch of no's, which means you got to keep pointing your face at the ideal. If you go out and shoot a shotgun and hope to hit the center of anything, you're just lost.
Yep.
So we've got to focus on the bullseye. That one activity will give you a little more focus. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, just a little more focus, and then get the sales team to focus on only those folks for 30 days and just see what happens.
I love this. I'm going to just testify of this to the audience, because we literally just did this again. I do this at least once a quarter with my team.
Really?
Almost this exact strategy. That's why I was like, wow, I feel like I'm like having deja vu here. But we did this. And interestingly enough, you all know what we do. But our ideal client is not a podcaster. Weirdly enough, you would think that would be who our ideal client is. That is not. Our best clients just exited. They're a company. So they've just exited, and they're a thought leader who says, what now? What next? Every single one of our favorite clients fits that profile. And we go, well, then we just need to go look at companies who've exited in the last 30 days and get them on a call. That's all we have to do.
Thanks for sharing, by the way, because I did not know that. And now I know who to introduce to you.
Hey, there you go.
I'm a certified exit planning advisor. So I work with people in exit planning as well. It's sort of inside the business coaching arena.
Yeah.
In that moment after exit, that second half, that how will I have impact? Man, that is an important question. I love getting behind that and putting pressure. You were talking earlier about the definition for advocacy.
Yeah.
For me, it's just a picture. I never step in front. I want to stay behind, and I want you to become the best version of yourself. So if we could help business owners who are out there trying to find a way to have impact in that second half, boom, I'm on your team and I'm sending them to you. It's brilliant.
Love it. Love it. I appreciate that. And that does make it easy even for me to send people your way, because I'm like, well, me and every other person I work with sells strategy typically. Brilliant stuff, guys. Okay, so I'm going to give one final call to action here for you guys. So make sure you go out, do that list, write down a list of 10 people, ask all those questions, get your entire team involved with this. It's a hugely valuable team building experience. Buy some pizza, or if you're vegan or whatever, buy whatever nastiness you guys eat. Anyway, so sit down and have a good team building experience around your client. It's a fantastic exercise that you can do. And on top of that, go over to idealclientexperience.com. Check out what HB's doing. This guy is one of the people, for those of you who are sellers of strategy, this is the guy you should reach out to get help with your own strategy as well. So HB, I appreciate you coming on here today. Is there anything you want to leave our audience before we leave?
I'm just thinking about how fun it is to spend time with people you resonate with. When you share values and you share, we love people, Josh. That's our problem. We can't stop loving people, so it drives us forward. I just want to say thank you for letting me have the opportunity. I always learn something when I'm with smart people like you. And I think the more time we spend with one another, regardless of financial outcomes, we just all kind of come up together. And I just appreciate that about you, and I appreciate that about your firm. And I love the way you love people. You are givers and not takers.
Well, we appreciate that. And I appreciate you as well, because I do think HB, that is your core competency. So I hope you continue to spread the good word through business, through strategy, and through the ideal client experience. So go over to idealclientexperience.com and we'll catch you guys all on the flip side.